Welcome back to TaraChessAcademy, and in today's video, I'm super excited because we are going to check out a game between Gukesh and Alignable. Well, let's get right into it. So Alignable plays c4, Gukesh plays e6, and we start out with the English opening. And we have knight to c3, e5, e4, and we transpose into the queen's gambit declined opening. And then we have knight to f6, c takes c5, e takes d5, bishop to g5, pinning the knight. And we have bishop to d4, pinning the white knight. Then e3, h3, challenging the bishop, either to capture or to move away to h4. So we have bishop h4, d5, bishop g3, and knight e4, attacking the bishop, but more importantly, this knight on c3. So black has two attackers on this knight, but white only has one defender on it. So they move their rook to c1. And then we have h4, with the plan of moving we have h5 with the plan of moving to h4, and if the bishop comes to e5, then f6 with the protection of the knight would trap the white bishop. So we have f3 attacking the knight and giving the bishop an escape square. So knight takes the bishop, h takes back, and we have c6 guarding the pawn, possibly opening up the diagonal for the queen. And then bishop to d3, just developing it, knight to d7, pawn to g4, and here we're putting some pressure on this pawn, because if the pawn takes back, then we would take the black rook for free. So black plays h4, d3, putting even more pressure on this pawn, and queen to e7. So Black's point of this move is that white is, although attacking this pawn, black is attacking the white pawn. And this pawn is an isolated pawn, because no pawn could protect this one. So white moves their king to d2 to guard this pawn. But this is sad because now his king is not able to castle anymore, and he has to give up that ability to do so. So the knight comes to d6, and white plays a3, challenging the bishop, and stopping the pin from the knight. Because if the bishop tries to go back to a5 and keep the pin, then we would play b4 to trap the bishop. So the bishop comes back to d6 and puts some more pressure on this pawn. Okay, so g takes h4, g takes h4, and then we have f4, which is sort of restricting the black bishop even further, because we know that the bishop can't go anywhere on this diagonal, but it also can't go anywhere here because of this move f4. And we see that although white's king is not castled and he's in the center of the board, white has some pretty good control of the center. So here there's some ups and downs for both sides. So the bishop comes to d7, and the queen comes to f3. White's point of this move is to, yes, guard both of these pawns, but to more importantly guard the e3 pawn. Because later, maybe the king could come to c2 and then b1, and then sort of hand castle is the point. So black castles to the queen side, and we have f5, restricting the other bishop, but possibly opening up the dark square bishop. So we have king to b8, just for good measures, because black has a pretty good position. Even though this bishop is restricted, he has his queen attacking this isolated pawn, and his king is doing a lot better than white's king. So it's just better for him to take some extra precautions to make sure that his king will be safe. So that's why he moves his king to d8. And plus, get off this scary diagonal from the rook. Scary file. So the knight develops to h3 and get the rook and to get the other rook into the game. So black plays c5, understanding that white's king is in the center and trying to opening up the center. So white plays f6, hitting the queen. Queen goes back to f8. We have g5, protecting this pawn, also planning to advance further and maybe get a passed pawn, but who knows. So the rook goes to g8, king comes to c2, hoping to get d1 and hand castle. Then we have pawn takes, rook to c8, pinning the knight and taking advantage of the exposed king. So the king comes back to b1, and now he's pretty safe, and it's like none of that never happened. So, unfortunately for him, on the next move we see this. The bishop captures, and it looks like a sacrifice, but the point of this is that it will open up white's king even further. So the queen takes, and if the knight comes back, then we have knight to a4, trying to make a checkmate. And then if the queen tries to give a check, just to stall the position and to come back. And by the way, the point of knight to a4 was to threaten a checkmate. So that's why the queen went here to give a check, because after it can come back and defend the checkmate threat. So then the rook takes, if the knight takes back, then we have knight to c3 giving a check, bishop a4, and after the knight blocks, and we play this, and then the king takes, and then the bishop comes to a4, this is a checkmate. So let's go back. If instead the rook takes, well, we would get the knight, and if the queen takes, we would get the bishop. So white's position isn't doing so good here. So black tries to take advantage of their position. So here white has two seemingly good moves. Knight takes pawn or knight to b5. The game, white chose knight to b5. If he played this move, then the rook would take, rook takes c1, and then after a simple trade, bishop would come to e6, and black's bishops are doing pretty well. They have a good control of the diagonals. And then if the queen tries to give a check, it really doesn't work, because after bishop to d6, the bishop is attacking the queen, and again, the bishops are doing pretty well here. So let's go back. Instead, Kwang chose to go to b5. Okay. And the bishop took, and the rook took, queen takes, bishop takes, lots of trades. Now bishop d6. Then we have bishop d3, hoping to, well, first controlling this diagonal and planning to later play g6 and try to advance his pawns. So next the queen comes to d7, and we have d6 going right for his plans. The pawn takes, and then instead of playing f7 right away, white hopes to prepare this move with knight to g5, guarding the f7 square and also this square, but not as important. Controlling the f7 square is a lot more important. So the queen comes to a4, knight goes to e6, rook to c8, queen to e1, offering a queen trade. Gukesh declines the queen trade by moving d7. Then the queen comes to The queen comes to g4, guarding the knight. Knight comes to c4, bishop takes, pawn takes, rook takes h4, and c3, pawn takes, queen to b5, check, king comes to c2, queen to a4 check, king to d2, queen to a2 check, and now here if king goes up, what would happen is queen would move to c4, king goes to e4, queen comes to c6, the pawn blocks the check on d5, and the queen comes to c4, and then this is just pretty bad for white here. The pawn takes back, and after a few more checks, it's pretty clear that black will have a winning position. So let's go back. Instead, white chooses to go down. And we have queen to b3, king to e2, and then what happens is queen to c2. Alright, so after queen to a2 check, we know that going up the board doesn't work. So in the game, Gukesh goes, Kwang Lim Lei goes down. And then we have queen to e3, king e2, rook to e8, pinning the knight, and we have two attackers to it, only one defender. So Kwang really has to do something, so he just moves the pawn to f7, attacking the rook, but the rook can just take the knight with check, and we have king to d2, king to c7, just for good measures that the pawn won't promote with check, rook h7, and white's point is if white gets a free move, they're planning to promote, because then the king would be in check. But unfortunately for white, all of that is stopped after queen to b2. Then we have king to d3, queen to d1, king to d2, queen to e1 with the protection of the rook, king to c2, rook to e2, and king to b3, queen to d1. And now we have king to a4. Then our rook can just make a checkmate. And if the king goes to c4, we would move our pawn to d5 and a pretty quick checkmate. And king to d5, queen to b3, pawn to c4, queen takes, and it's a checkmate. So I really think the point of this opening was that although it looked like white played some pretty great moves, he actually had a worse position, and that kept getting worse and worse because Gukesh kept targeting white's weaknesses. So yeah, that was just my recap on the game. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video to others. I'll see you on my next video.